Guys, welcome to the Called and Creative podcast. I am your host, Courtney Miller.
And I'm your other host, Michaela Steek.
Today, we didn't necessarily have a specific topic in mind. We took a break for spring break and we're just trying to get back into the swing of things now, kind of figure out how we're going to go about, podcasting from here on out. And so we just kind of figured that we would just hang out, catch up a little bit, talk about what we've been doing, and then kind of see where the conversation flows.
Yeah.
So, what have you been up to like the last couple of weeks?
I have been just in mom mode, honestly. Also, real estate season really kicked off. Really a few weeks before spring break. Real estate is so busy, mostly in the summertime because that's when kids are out of school. That's when people want to move. They don't want to move kids in the middle of the school year. And so, really, like spring break is a great time for people to list their homes because it's natural, like the end of the school year is coming. They're starting to think about summertime and moving and all of that. And so people start to get their, home photos taken those like weeks before spring break. So I have just been crazy busy shooting tons and tons of real estate, and then just surviving a mom mode all the other times. So I haven't really been shooting a lot of portraits. I've done a few branding sessions and that's really it. I have a C-section on Friday that I'm photographing, but other than
Fun.
that, yeah, I'm excited. I'm a little nervous because 'cause I've never done anything like it, but, it's at a hospital. It's actually the hospital that I delivered my last baby at, and the OB that's delivering is my OB, and so
That's
I'm
so
really
cool.
excited about that. But I have to be there at, like, 6 o'clock in the morning, so it's going to be a very early day. And then C-sections are just kind of like you have to just kind of wait your turn basically. So she'll be scheduled for like 7 a.m., but it may not happen at 7 a.m. It may get pushed or it may be earlier. So you just kind of have to wait it out. So I'm really interested to see how it goes. And I'm not really even sure what lens I'm going to use because I've never shot a C-section before. So we'll see how it goes.
I'm betting like a good like wide zoom lens would probably be pretty good for that. I guess
Yeah.
I've never witnessed a C-section in person, but I
Mhm.
did get to go into like an operating room one time when I was in high school because I was job shadowing a doctor. And sometimes they're like pretty small and they kind of usually I guess I don't know from a standpoint of like a photographer because you're right, like I've never done a birth or anything like
Right.
that either. But I would assume that they probably have a very, like, small section in the corner where, like, this is where you get to stand and you
Yeah.
can't move.
Yeah. Yeah. So the one that we'll be in is, I mean, maybe as big as, like, my master bedroom. Like, I have a pretty big master bedroom, but, I mean, it's not, like, a huge room by any means,
Mhm.
and they don't even, like, keep the baby in there once they deliver. They actually, like, wrap the baby up and then hand him to dad or whoever the support person is, and then they take the baby to another room, to assess them and get them cleaned up and do all the things that they need to do, and so it's that small that there's not space to do all that, like, in the operating room, and so it is fairly small. It's very bright because of the lights that they use, and so I'm a little nervous about that. It is a model call, so I know that if the photos aren't perfect, it will be okay, but of course I want them to be perfect, and so I'm nervous, but I think it'll be good. I'm thinking probably a 24 to 70 just
Mhm.
because it's a wide range. I can zoom pretty far at 70, and you're right, like, I'm gonna be so in such close quarters with, like, dad and then mom, because dad will stand, like, right next to mom's head, and then photographer's, like, right there next to them, and so you're pretty close at that point, so I think that 24 will be good.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a great idea. And it
I thought
sounds really
about
fun.
35 too, but I don't like that there's no zoom on that.
Yeah.
You're just stuck at a 35, so
Yeah.
the situation I'll be in stuck in my one little spot, I don't think that's a great choice.
Yeah, I love a 35, but you gotta be
Yeah,
able to, like, move around with it
for
if I'm gonna
sure.
use a
Yeah.
prime, so
Yeah, so I'll have to update you guys next week on how it went. I'm really excited, but like I said,
Yeah.
nervous, so Yeah, I don't
That's
know if
really
we'll do
cool.
another one. It's been a little, like I feel like I can't plan too much because it's like if she goes into labor beforehand, like, I'll have to go to the hospital immediately, so I'm like, I can't really, like, go anywhere or, like, be too far away because I don't want that to happen, and I'm sure birth photographers, like, that's just how they live their life. They just are always on call, always ready to go at any given time, and so I don't know if I'm in the right season to be doing that regularly, but we'll see.
Yeah, I totally get that. I've never done a birth or anything like that. I would love to, but
Uh-huh.
honestly, with me doing weddings, the opportunity really just like has not presented itself where everything has kind of aligned for it. I did have one mom reach out and like she did not care I hadn't done one before. Like she really wanted me there. Well, she was due the beginning of August and I have a wedding the end of July. And for me, that's a little too close for comfort just because I know that, like, just because you're due in August doesn't mean that that's when you're gonna have the baby. Like, something could happen and she could,
Exactly.
go into labor sooner. And with that only being, like, a week or 2 difference from, like, the wedding to, like, her due date, I was like, "Okay, what would be my luck that she would just so happen to go into labor on the one day that I have a wedding?"
Right.
So
Well,
I
you
didn't
don't
want
wanna
to do
tell a
that
client, like, "Hey, your birth is not as important as this
as
wedding,"
a
but
wedding. Yeah.
yeah, so you really do need to, like, have a birth photographer if you're going to
Mhm.
hire a photographer, or just be okay with the idea that they may not make it, um, and that's kind of where I've been. It's like, if I didn't make it, like, she didn't pay me a lot of money because it is a model call, I could just refund her, but then I would just feel bad because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, like, you can't redo that, obviously, and so I want to be there.
Yeah,
I
which is exactly what, like,
and
I ended up telling her
yeah,
too. Yeah, because
yeah,
at that point, I was just like, "It's just too close for comfort for me." Like, I would really hate to, like, tell you I could be there and then, like, something came up and now, like, I have to choose between you or the wedding, and then it just, starts spiraling and goes downhill from there. And so I ended up telling her no, but I don't
yeah,
know, maybe one day, maybe
yeah,
I'll get there, but it kinda depends. I don't know, I almost kinda feel like, depending on how you work it, I feel like you either have to choose weddings or birth if it's, like, between the 2,
absolutely.
'cause I almost feel like those 2 can't I don't wanna say they can't
Coexist very
coexist.
well.
Yeah, but I feel like at least not super functionally.
Right. I think you would have to make sure your clients knew, "Hey, it's very possible that, like, I could miss it. You'll be
Mhm.
refunded," and that stinks, to take money and then have to refund it, which I don't think I've ever had to refund, now that I think of it, for any reason,
Yeah,
but I don't ever
I'd
want
rather
to
not
have
start.
to. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
want to start, so
Yeah.
yeah, we should have a birth photographer on because that's so different than what either one of us
Yeah.
do. That would be fun.
That would be fun. I met, I can't remember her name. I'll have to see if I can find her because if I can find her and maybe message her, she would be a really, like, interesting person to talk to because I met her at a newborn workshop, like, a year ago, and she only does, like, baby stuff. So she does births, she does newborn, and she does maternity, and that's, like, the extent of what she does.
Uh-huh.
And she's also a certified doula, and so she, like, wraps
Very
up all
cool.
of her services into, like, one big thing, and that's, like, all she does, and she was kinda talking about how, like, she doesn't do weddings, not because she doesn't like them, but because, like, she chose births instead of weddings, and she found out very quickly that you can't do both very well.
That'd be very
And
difficult.
so she chose to go the birth route, and she had some really, really cool stories because basically her, like, concept with it is she does, like, a complete package. So, like, they find out that they're pregnant and they book, like, a big thing with her, and she works with them for, like, almost a full year because she, like, does
Very
stuff with
cool.
them leading up to it. She does their maternity session, and then she does the birth both as a doula and, as the photographer. And then she also comes back around a couple weeks later and does their newborn session, and then, like, also helps with, like, I can't remember what it's called, like the placenta encapsulation, like,
Oh,
she does
wow.
that too.
It is a whole thing.
Yeah, she did a bunch of stuff, like, she was rattling off all the stuff, I was like,
Huh.
"Wow, girl, like, you got it." Like, she's just figured
Yeah.
out how to, like, make all of these things, like, work really, really well for her, and she
Huh.
was so knowledgeable, so she would be a really cool person to talk to.
Yeah, I think that is one thing I've learned is that, like, your photography or your business in general can just kinda ebb and flow with your life season. I am not in a life season to be doing births and be on call at any given moment because I have little kids at home, and so it's just not a good season for me, and that's also why I'm not doing weddings right now is because I don't wanna be gone for 10 or 12 hours a day, and away from my kids, and so will there be a season where I do either one of those things? Maybe. I don't know what's gonna happen in 5 or 10 years, but right now I'm doing, like, what works for me in this season.
Yeah, that's another good point because 'cause you're right, just because it works for, like, somebody else doesn't mean it will work for you
Right.
or, even, like, a 2 to 3-year difference, I mean, can make
Oh, yeah.
really all the difference in what works or what doesn't work
Oh,
anymore.
yeah. In 3 years, I'll have a 6-year-old and a, well, 4-year-old. That's
4-year-old?
a vast
Yeah.
difference having a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, so what have you been up to? We haven't really talked much since we kinda took a spring break.
Yeah, so the last couple of weeks have kind of been crazy. One of my little sisters came to visit,
Fun.
and she's expecting, and so we did a small little maternity session for her at my
Oh, fun.
studio. Yeah, and then, they spent the weekend with us, and so we just kinda hung out and went and saw a movie and just, like, did a bunch of fun stuff with them because I don't get to
Uh-huh.
see her very much because they live in Nebraska. So, I was really excited to see her, and then, I've shot 2 weddings and I think 3 newborns in the last, like, 2 weeks, so been kinda busy between those things and then also just, like, keeping up with editing and all of the craziness that is owning your own business. But
Yes.
it's been busy, but it's been good.
Good.
So, yeah.
I feel like spring is a good it's just a good season because you're starting to get busier again, like, you kinda get out of that, like, winter funk that you can get in, like, during slow season, but it's not, like, so crazy that you wanna, like, die. I really enjoy spring for that reason, and even summer is kinda that way too. I know summer can be really busy for weddings, which I'm not doing weddings right now, so I'm not quite feeling that.
Yeah, I definitely I want to say probably like a month ago, I was really feeling like the oh man, I'm tired, like burnout. I don't want to do this, all the things. And then it was like March hit, the sun started coming out, like stuff started growing again. It's getting nicer outside. More people are like, okay, we're actually going to do stuff like outside now. I had weddings, so I feel so much better. I'm, like, so ready for this year. I'm just really excited now, which is really funny because it totally changed for me in the span of, like, just a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I'm, waiting for the trees to bud out a little bit more. I usually do some, like, outdoor sessions this time of year, but everything just seems so dead still. So, I'm
Yeah.
trying to wait a little bit longer. I know that's been a big talk in the Tulsa areas, like, Woodward Park looks terrible, and
Mhm.
everything's just still so dead, which is odd because it's hot. Like, today it's gonna be,
Yeah.
like, 94 degrees in March.
Yeah.
I think that's crazy.
That is crazy.
But it might be how dry we've been too, we haven't had a lot of rain, and so I think that might be part of it.
Mhm. I've also noticed that, even just, over the last week, we've had, one day it'll be, 80 or potentially even 90 degrees, and
Yeah,
then, 2 days later, it's, freezing. Yeah.
yeah.
So, I don't
Yeah, I'm
know.
definitely checking my weather app every day.
Oh,
I'm
same.
typically not like a weather checker type person, like, I just kinda go with the flow, but now I'm like, I have to before I get dressed for the day because, like, yesterday, I wore long sleeves, pants, and then today I'm wearing shorts because it's gonna be 94 degrees, so
Yep. Yeah.
craziness. And my allergies, of course, are loving that too.
Oh, yeah. My allergies have been horrible,
Yeah,
really,
mine
really
too.
bad. So,
Last week, I couldn't breathe out of my nose, like, at all. Like, I was just completely clogged up, and I'm like, "Ugh."
yeah,
It's hard to live your life when you can't breathe.
it really is. People take it for granted, and then you get sick and you're like, "Oh, man, I
Yeah.
miss being able to breathe," right?
Yes. Well, I think this is a good segue. Kind of talking about all the different things we do, all the hats we wear. We kind of talked about maybe talking about some of the opportunities for photographers that you don't necessarily think about. I know most people, when you think of a photographer, you think of someone who like owns their own business, who works for themselves and, does all the things, but there's actually a lot of opportunities out there for photographers besides just running your own business.
So, when I think of that, there's a couple different things that come to mind, and it really kind of depends on like what exactly you're looking to shoot. But the first thing that comes to mind is like alternative things you can do for weddings. So you can not only like own your own business and be the main photographer that you book the client, you take care of them from the very beginning to the very very end. You shoot their wedding, you edit their photos, you deliver the gallery, you do all the client communication on your own. But you can also second shoot, which means that there is a lead photographer who they own their own business, and then they come in and say, "I need to hire an assistant for the day." And so they hire basically another person who more than likely owns their own business. And you can come in and basically subcontract with them to help them shoot the wedding. And that's really good, in my opinion, for if you're just looking to see if you want to get into weddings and you know your camera really well and you just want to see like what it's about, what it would be like to shoot a full wedding day. Um, I know there are a lot of photographers who, if you want to like just come to a wedding with them, they'll let you do it. There are a
Uh-huh.
lot of them out there like that. And so that's a really great way to be able to get your foot in the door and see what it would be like and see if you're interested in it. But there are also paid opportunities with it as well. For me personally, I have a second shooter as an add-on for my packages. And so my client pays me extra money for me to then go out and hire a second photographer to pay them to come help me capture different angles and different things going on throughout the day. And so typically for me, I pay $50 an hour. I usually don't pay less than that just because I feel like that's pretty industry standard for second shooting opportunities. But I have seen some areas are more, some areas are slightly less. I think it probably just kind of depends on where you're at. For me, I think $50 an hour is um, pretty average across the board.
Well, and I think when you're going, like, you're not having to find the client, you're not editing, you're not calling, you're literally just there the day
Yep.
of your gear.
Yep.
$50 an hour is good.
Good. I mean, because if
Yeah.
you think about it, the only thing you have to do, you have to show up, you have to be there for maybe 8 hours,
Right.
and you're just taking the pictures and you're handing your SD card off. That for me personally, I guess I don't know how every other photographer does this, but for me personally, I require my second photographers to have a camera body with dual card slots,
Mhm.
and I give them 1 SD card, and then they have to provide the second one as, like, a potential backup.
Uh-huh.
And then so I take the main SD card at the end of the day, and then they can keep theirs if they wanna do anything with the pictures or anything like that. And then so they don't even have to do anything. They just show up, they use their gear to take pictures, they give me the SD card, and then they leave, and I don't need anything else from them. So you're right,
Well,
like $50 an hour to do that.
as long as the client's okay with the second having photos or using the photos as well, you have all of these photos to use and advertise your own business, edit them, and there's no timeline. You don't have to deliver them at any certain time because the client's not getting them from you. They shouldn't even have any contact with you, only the main photographer. And so I think second shooting is the best. Like, I would love to do more second shooting gigs. Unfortunately, I don't like to work weekends. So all the second shooting opportunities I look for are on weekdays. There aren't a lot of weekday weddings, and so I don't get to do it very often. But I think it is a steal.
It's a lot of fun too, cause like, it also, like for me, like, weddings are kind of I don't wanna say, like, totally high stress because it's not always high stress, but, there are a lot of moving parts, everything's moving very
Space.
quickly. Yes, fast-paced, that's a great, like, way to describe it. There's a lot of things going on, and you have to be, like, ready to do different things in a split second, and so it can kinda be overwhelming, but as a second photographer, you get to sit back, you get to watch things happen, you just get to take pictures. A lot of times you get to be more creative too, because the main photographer is the one that is more concerned about getting those, like, I need this shot, I need this shot, I need this shot. Whereas the second is really, at least the way that I hire seconds, I have them there for alternative angles, creative, different creative ideas, and then also to, like, usually capture, like, cocktail hour, which is usually going on during, like, family and formal portraits and things like that, so I'll usually be getting those, and then I usually send my second photographer in to take a couple pictures of, some of the family and friends hanging out in the cocktail hour while they're, doing their thing, and really
Yeah.
that's the main thing that I usually have seconds for, and so I think that can kinda be freeing to, like, try new things, because if it
Uh-huh.
doesn't work out, no harm, no foul, because you know,
Right.
you have the main photographer who's getting all of the typical, like, shots you would need for a wedding, whereas you can just be more creative and try things.
And if you never hired a second, the one thing I always forget to do is sync my camera time with my second's camera time
I
because
forgot to
that
do
means
that at
when
the
you
last wedding.
upload your photos, they are in order, so you don't have to reorder them later. But I did recently learn we did a style shoot together and we kind of shot it main and second so that we didn't have to get the same shots twice. And I learned that you can go in to Lightroom and you can actually change the time. So if your times are off, you can go in and like highlight all of like your seconds and you can make it sync to the time that you already have on your own photos and it'll put them in order.
I did not know that.
I mean, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt to make sure you like do the math right, but
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well, that's
ours
better than
was
nothing.
like either my camera or your camera didn't, like, change time when the time change happened, recently, and
Oh,
so they were an hour off, like, they were pretty much synced, but they were an hour off, and so I just had to, like, add an hour to one of them to make them be within the same hour.
that's cool. I'm gonna have to look into, like, how
Yeah.
to do that.
It makes life so much simpler.
Yeah, I could definitely see how that would.
Tell you how many hours I have sat trying to, like, reorder photos and put them in a way that, like, makes sense because they weren't synced correctly, so when I
Mm.
learned that, I was like, I don't even know how I discovered it, honestly. I just was messing around one day and I was like, "Oh, you can do that? Okay."
Those are, like, the best, like, little hidden things that you
Yeah.
find out, like, when
Why
you're
has
just
no one ever
randomly
told me
pushing
this?
buttons. Yeah, that's awesome. Honestly, we should have, like, a random, like, Lightroom hack or, like, "Did you know you can do this?" like, episode. That would be
I
kinda
don't know if
cool.
I'm qualified because I still find things that I'm like, "Oh." So, since I went mirrorless, I have had a lot of problems with dust on my sensor. And I guess mirrorless is just really prone to dust on your sensor because it's not as protected as like a DSLR is. And
Mhm.
so I've had so many issues because I had to change lenses quite a bit because of, I go back and forth between portraits and real estate. And so I recently learned that there is a little button on the like removal section of Lightroom. It says dust and you just check it and it takes all the dust spots off. And if you
Well,
think
you
about
just
it,
taught me 2
your
new
dust
things.
spots are gonna be in the same spot every single shot, and so you can just dust one of them and then sync it, and it'll get rid of all of them.
Yep, I've decided. The Lightroom hack that should be our next episode. That's a good idea.
I'll have to make a list of hacks, I guess.
I feel
It's
like
one
I know
that you just don't know till you know, and
exactly.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. I know a lot of keyboard shortcuts for
Oh,
things.
really?
Mhm. I so one of my professors in college, he literally our entire like first month there with him, it was like a Photoshop class, and he did nothing but teach us shortcuts. And we literally had a quiz on how well we knew shortcuts, and
That's
everyone had to get at least an 80% before we moved on. And
uh-huh,
so, like, I have it, like, drilled into my brain for, like, a lot
uh-huh,
of, like, typical, like, Mac shortcuts. And the cool thing is it kinda for the most part, the Photoshop and the Lightroom ones are almost the same.
uh-huh.
Most of them are the same.
See, there are things like that I'm like, "Man, why didn't I go to college for photography?" You know, I have a business degree. I
Yeah.
mean, it does help, but not that
I will
much.
say there have been times where I wish that I would have taken some business classes.
Yeah.
Instead of, like I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved the classes, like, the art classes and stuff that I took in college. I use a good majority of them, like, on a daily basis,
Uh-huh.
but I do wish that I would have snuck some business ones in there because there are a lot of things when you own your own business, you think, "Oh, like, it's gonna be a lot of taking pictures and doing this and doing that." Well, there's also a lot of business end stuff that you need to do because if you're not running a profitable business, you can't do the fun taking pictures and creating art and doing all the fun things that you love, and so my business and knowledge, I feel like, lacks a little bit, and so I kinda wish that I would have
I
taken
will
some.
say that, like, the courses you take in a business degree don't necessarily line up with, like, small business ownership. It's more
Mhm,
geared towards, like, what you would need to know working for a large corporation, and so, like, that end of business.
mhm.
So maybe if you get into, like, an MBA or something very specific, like a
Yeah.
high level degree like that, it might go more into it, but, like, no one taught me how to do my taxes or marketing for a small business owner. Like, I did take a marketing course, but it wasn't geared towards, like, a small business. Like, we didn't even go over social media or anything like that,
That's
and
crazy.
I would say it was, like, more outdated, like,
Yeah,
marketing concepts, but not, like, to the modern business
mhm.
owner. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I would be upset that you didn't get a business degree. I don't know if it would help that much.
Yeah.
And it
See, I don't
probably
know if
depends
I
on where you go too.
yeah. Yeah, we got off track, but that's okay.
That was totally off track,
Yeah.
but, I think
Um,
we talked about second shooters a lot, not a lot of, responsibilities. Sometimes people will have their second shooter do, like, the groomsmen photos while the main does, like, the bridesmaids. I don't like to do that. I wanna do it all myself and just have help. That's honestly, I have a second shooter because I don't like to be alone all day. I
mhm,
want help, I want conversation, I want somebody to run and grab things when I don't have time to. So, I'm more of a hire second for, like, company more than anything, but occasionally, sometimes you'll get somebody who they want you to have, like, a little more responsibility, and if you shot a wedding on your own, like, you can totally handle it. There's also associate shooting. Some people, like, if they have double inquiries for the same date, they will hire, like, an associate, and so you would go shoot a wedding as the main shooter. Sometimes you'll also have a second shooter with you, um, and then you'll just shoot the wedding as the lead and then hand off the photos. And that can be really nice too because you're not dealing with booking the client communication, you're not editing or calling or any of that stuff. Hands off as soon as you upload the photos or give the photos to the main photographer, you're done. But it is a little bit more responsibility than just second shooting. But they do I have never paid an associate, but if I was going to, it would probably be between 100 and 150 an hour.
mhm.
I think that's pretty fair.
I think so too.
I think 100's definitely on the low end, and I kind of depends on, like, if they're traveling as well. Like, if I'm going 5 minutes down the road, $100 will probably suffice, but if I'm driving an hour there and an hour back, I might want a little bit more, so
Yeah.
And that kind of brings up a hot topic too. There are companies out there that actually work only with associate teams. And so they basically have like office people who do the marketing and the booking and the client communication and all of that. And then they just hire, contracted associates and seconds to actually do the work, and then they'll do the editing and stuff. Are you familiar with any companies like that or thought about working
So
for one?
I know one, it's called Complete Weddings and Events. And I know that there is one here in like the Tulsa metro area. Um and
Is it
then
franchise?
I think it is kind of like a franchise because so I'm originally from Nebraska, and we used Complete Weddings and Events in Kearney, Nebraska, which is where I went to college and where we got married. And we hired them for our DJ. And so they do all over the place. I don't think it's just like a Midwest thing. I think it's all over the place. Um, but each individual one is like their own thing. They're not like, in connection with each other. Although I have met the guy, I can't think of his name now, the one that owns the one here in the Tulsa metro area. I've met him before and we got to talking about how I was from Kearney and he was like, "Oh, you know so and so who owns the one in Kearney." Cuz I guess Kearney is like one of the like main hubs for like complete weddings and events.
That's so random.
And I know, it was so random, and he was like, "Oh, so you know this guy?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I met him before." And,
Uh-huh.
so Kearney, for those, like, that don't know or have never been to Nebraska, it's a huge, like, college town. That's most of, like, what is, like, going on there, because they have one of the main universities for Nebraska there, and,
Or like Stillwater for Oklahoma
yes, yeah,
or Norman.
yep, and so, Complete Weddings and Events was kind of a big, like, thing there because they had a lot of, art and film and photography students who they would basically, like, bridge them into, like, "Hey, come work for us and, like, get real
Right.
life experience while you're going to school," and, like, kinda do it that way. And while I excuse me, while I myself, I've never done it, I have never worked for any of those companies or anything like that. I had a lot of friends in, like, classes and things with me that they did it on the side,
Uh-huh.
and they really loved it because it was really flexible with, like, their schedule and things. They could not only do, their classes when they had classes, they worked, like, random part-time jobs like you do when you're in college, and then
Right.
they also did, like, random stuff on the side with a lot of times either they were, like, really into video or really into photography, and they kinda did portraits or, films, things like that, but then they also did this on the side kind of whenever it fit with their schedule, and they got paid, I wanna say it was pretty decent money. I think that my friend said that at the time, which this was probably like 5, 6 years ago, I think he said that he would make anywhere from like 5 to maybe even $800 in like a day being, like the video person.
Huh.
And he would just go and he would do the video, and then he would pass off all of his stuff to their team, and then their team would take it from there, and they would do all the editing, they would do all the client communication, they would book the client. He didn't have to do anything other than show up, do the work, and then he left, and it was off of his plate. And so he really loved that.
Huh. Yeah, I did one called Encompass Weddings, and they're kinda, like, all over the US. They kind of just from what I gather, they take inquiries from anybody in the US, and then they try to find a photographer in that area. Um, and they don't have a lot, like, in our area, so sometimes they would want me to drive, like they wanted me to go to, like, San Antonio one time,
Oh,
and
jeez.
they wanted to pay me travel for, like, $250, and I was like, "Bro, that's like I mean, easily like a 4-day trip because, you gotta go down the night before the wedding, you're there the
Yeah,
day of, and then you don't have time to drive home after the wedding, and so you have
yeah,
to stay at least 2 nights. That's not even gonna cover my hotel, and so
yeah.
I did like, when I first started working for them, I did a good handful of, like, local events, And they do pay pretty well. It was usually between, like, 80 and $90 an hour. Sometimes I could be like, "Hey, I will do it, but I'm gonna do it like, I'll only do it for $100 an hour," and so I could kind of, like, barter with them a little bit, and often they didn't have anybody else to take it on, and so they would just give me what I wanted, and so
Oh.
I did a few for them. It's fun. My biggest issues with working for a large company like that was the communication was not great. I often would show up really blind, having no idea. Like, they would literally book the date. They would send me like the address and the number for the bride, and that was it. Like, that was all of the information I got for the entire wedding. And often there was no timeline. And so I didn't wanna show up to a wedding blind with no timeline, no nothing, and so often, like, I would end up doing that anyways because it would make my job easier, and so I just ended up doing a lot of work that should have been done, like, by the company because I was a contractor, I wasn't the main photographer, and so that was my biggest issue with it. They did pay fairly I feel like they paid pretty decently, but then there were those situations where they wanted me to travel 8 hours one way to a wedding and not pay me hardly anything for travel, and so I kinda just got away from working with them for that reason because most of the inquiries they would send me were for pretty far travel like that, and so the last one I did with them was actually Broken Bow, and I just went ahead and took it because Broken Bow was, like, on my bucket list for weddings, and so I went ahead and did it, and it was a beautiful wedding. It was in, like, a cabin, really intimate, beautiful. It was a lot of fun, and so but I also spent more on that trip than I earned because we made a weekend of it, but that was my choice. So I think, at least from my experience, it is okay to work for companies like that, in the wedding industry especially, but I do think you have to be careful because a lot of them I have looked for other opportunities like that. They don't pay hardly anything. There was one they were paying like $30 an hour.
Oh, to be, like, the lead photographer?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Isn't that crazy?
That's ridiculous,
Yeah.
honestly, is
And I will say too that, like, the culture at those weddings is so different than when you actually, like, book your own client and you create a relationship with them throughout their engagement. A lot of those weddings, I was very much, like, viewed as, like, the help. I was
Mhm.
like, they didn't wanna conversate with me, they didn't want any kind of relationship with me, it was just like, "Do your job and get out," and so I do think there's, like, a differing, like, client relationship there, and so if client relationship is really important to you, you may not like it very much.
That's interesting. I don't know if I could just, like, go up to a wedding and not at the very least, like, have known or at least, like, texted with the bride or in some capacity, like, communicated with them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just love
I did
showing up
have
to
one.
weddings and, like, just being able to, like, talk to them and be like, "How are you doing? Like, are you nervous?" Or,
Yeah. So I did typically when I did them, I would, like, book a call with them just to, like, get the at least bare bones of, like, what the day was gonna be like and what to expect, because, like I said, I didn't like to show up just, like, with nothing to be prepared with, and so if they would do a call with me, like, I would go ahead and, like, take my time out of my day to do that. Um, it really worked out once because and that was not something I was required to do. It was just like, "Hey, touch base with the bride," and then that was it. Like, I wasn't required to do anything outside of that. And there was one where I booked so they sent me the date, I agreed to the rate, we booked it, put it on my calendar, and then a few weeks later, I got on a call with the bride just to go over everything, and we were talking about sunset, like, doing their sunset photos. I was like, "Oh, what's the date again?" Because I was gonna, like, look up the sunset time, and she says a date that's different than the date I had.
Oh, no.
They booked the wrong freaking date, and the actual date was on Father's Day.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
and it was, like, 3 hours away, and it was my husband's first Father's Day, so I was like, "I'm not gonna spend my entire day driving to this wedding, shooting this wedding on Father's Day, on my husband's very first Father's Day, and I wouldn't have even entertained the idea if I had known that was the actual date. And so I was like, I am so sorry. Like, they booked you on the wrong date. Like, I'm not going to be available on that particular day. I'm so sorry. She was so stressed out. And then I couldn't get a hold of anybody.
Oh
I
my gosh.
called and called and called, emailed. Finally, like 2 days later, she emails me back. She was like, "Oh, no worries. I'll get it taken care of." And I have no idea what they ended up doing or if they found somebody or what the deal is. But I felt bad because it was like, this is not my fault, but I feel like it's my fault for some reason.
Yeah.
I was like,
That's scary.
yeah. So, and granted, people who booked, like, it's a very inexpensive way to do photography for your wedding, typically. That's why companies exist because they can do it much cheaper than like a solo person can do it. So you almost have to think like you kind of get what you pay for, but not everybody expects that. So,
Mhm.
but yeah. So yeah, I think contracting's great, especially for weddings, but I do think you have to be on your toes, and if you feel weird about it, you probably shouldn't do it.
Mhm. It sounds like you almost would wanna be more like, kinda go with the flow, like, you're
Yeah,
okay with, like, not having a game plan walking into it. You're okay with, like, not knowing who the bride and groom are, like, knowing them, like, at all walking into it.
yeah,
You're there to capture the day. That's it.
yeah. Very much just like the help. You're just there to be there and to be of service. Like, not much relationship going on. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it just depends on your personality and if that's something that's important to you.
Yeah.
That kind of goes into so what I do, contracting for a real estate company. I will say that's vastly different than my wedding company experience. So there's a lot of real estate companies actually who do work that way. So I work for a company called Shutter House, and I'm a 1099 contractor. And we have probably 10 people on our team, if I remember right. And that includes our owners. So we have two owners and they also shoot full time. And so, but yeah, that's how it works. We have hundreds, if not thousands of clients across like the Tulsa area, really across the entire state of Oklahoma. We have some in Kansas, we have some in Arkansas, I think, maybe a little bit in Texas. And we each just set our hours on like a Google Calendar, and then people can go in and book you at any time for those time slots that you have open. And so my day to day is so you never know what you're gonna get. Sometimes a house will get canceled last minute, sometimes you'll pick up a house last minute, and so it is very, like, go with the flow, never know what you're gonna get, never know what you're walking into, never know if you're gonna be in an empty house or a house full of so much stuff, it's unbelievable. And so, um, I would definitely say you have to have a little bit of a go with the flow personality, but I really love it because literally all I do is set my hours, show up, shoot, and then I upload in the evening and that's it. Like, I don't have to edit. I do a little bit of client communication, especially for like my regulars. Because I we do have agents that will pick like a particular photographer because they just like them. So I do have like my regulars, but for the most part, like, we have an office. We have two office ladies who handle all the client communication, all the back end stuff. We have a full editing team, and so they do all the editing at night. And yeah, that's just kind of it. And they pay really, really well. And so I highly recommend, like, if you're looking for some kind of contracting position, something like that, um, especially if you can get to know the people in the company and you really feel confident in them. We have an amazing team. I have heard other teams don't necessarily have, like, that kind of back end. I think you said that you talked to somebody about joining their team and they wanted you to edit. Was that you?
Um, so I did. I talked to somebody, I think it was called Vast Media,
Oh,
and,
that's a big one here too. Yeah.
yeah, that's a really big one here in the Tulsa area, and they do real estate, they do, like, branding stuff, and then, like, also, like, product, like, shoots and things
Okay.
like that. So they're very, like, small/medium slash medium big businesses and, like, real estate, and that's, like, mostly what they do. And they do everything from, like, photography, videography, and I think they just started offering, like, social media not that long ago,
Uh-huh.
and, so they
They need
do,
to
like,
start
all the
making
stuff.
it now.
Yeah, they do, like, all the things, and when I first moved here, I actually had applied for a position with them, and I think they're probably just busier than all get out because from
Uh-huh.
the day I applied, it took them, like, 6 months before they reached out to me about it, like, even acknowledging that they, like, even got my resume, and when the lady reached out, she was like, "I'm so sorry, like, we have literally been nonstop." She's like, "I've been working, like, 20-hour days the last 3
Oh my
days," and I'm like, "Oh
god.
my gosh, okay, maybe this is not who I wanna work with," but she was really awesome, and the reason that she, like, was working so much is because she's the like, one of the owners,
Uh-huh.
and, so she was kinda telling me about it. It sounded really great, and then she kinda made it sound like we were gonna talk through next steps, and I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna try this, see where it goes," and then, like, basically, I got ghosted and never heard anything from her again, and, like, I'm not saying this to, like, dog on them because I see their stuff all over the place, and they make really cool stuff. I think they probably just got busy and forgot about me, which is fine because a few months later, I got busy and really didn't have the time to, like, even
Right.
want to pursue it, so I just, like, I quit following up after about a month,
Yeah.
um and it's fine, cause honestly, it was probably a God thing that I didn't get into it and then, like, have to quit it immediately, so it all worked out, but I know that they hire, like, photographers, they hire videographers, they hire social media people, they hire editors as well for both photo and video, um, and then I wanna say that they have a couple of other positions too that they hire for stuff like that, like, it's like social media, but it's like the editing side and then, like, more like on the podcast side too, I think.
Okay.
Um,
They're quite a bit bigger than I had thought. I only know
yeah.
them. They are our main competitor as far as real estate photography goes, and so, that's how I know their name, but that's really all I know about them.
Yeah, they're really big in the Tulsa area. I know they work with a lot of, like, businesses and stuff downtown because that's where their, like, main headquarters are at, I believe. Um And, so they do a lot of, like, business type stuff. The one kicker for me, for opportunities like this, and this is not necessarily like a, "Don't do it" type of warning, but it's more of a, like, that you'll probably have to do this if you wanna go this route. They typically have non-compete clauses in there
Oh, yeah, I have
where
a contract.
yeah, where you'll have to basically say, like, "I agree to not take these types of shoots. I can't book these types of clients on my own as my own company."
Yep.
And it's not only while you're working there, but it's usually for a typical usually 1 to 2 years after you stop working there as well, which
Yeah, I wanna say mine is 2 years.
yeah, yeah,
Which I will say, when I started at Shutter House, I had a conversation with one of the owners, and he said, "We're aware that you will not necessarily wanna be a contractor for the rest of your life. If you get to a point where you wanna go out and do your own thing, like, let's just have a conversation about it," and they may just, like, null that part of the agreement. But they do wanna put it in place, and I get it, because they don't want you coming in, building a clientele, and then, "Oh, I'm just
taking
gonna
them
go do
with
my own
yeah,
thing." Yeah, that's what they wanna avoid, and so I totally get it. I think it just kinda depends, like, what I do in my personal business is branding and, why am I blanking right now? Motherhood,
mhm,
portraits, and so That is so vastly different from what I do for Shutter House that it almost would like, there's no possibility of it, like, overlapping,
Yeah.
and real estate, it's vastly different than regular portraits. You shoot it completely differently, it's edited completely differently. To be completely honest, I don't know how to edit real estate photos because the way that most photographers don't know this actually, but the way that most real estate photos are taken is you actually take 5 brackets of the same photo, and they're lit differently. So you'll have one that's like perfectly lit, you'll have one that's like way overexposed, and then you'll have one that's like way underexposed, and then there's 2 that are like kind of in the middle. And then in editing, they actually blend all of those brackets together to bring up all of the shadows and then not blow out any of the highlights, which is when you have like windows and you're pulling things, like that's super, super important. And so I don't even know how to edit those because I've never learned and we have an editing team. And so I have no desire to ever take that on. And I think the biggest thing with real estate is that it's so fast paced. If you're working on your own and you get sick, you don't have a team to fall back on. Like all of those agents are probably going to go to somebody else because they need those pictures tomorrow so that they can get that listing live. And so I wouldn't say real estate would be something easy to do on your own. It's almost just impossible to do long term all by yourself, and so joining a team like that is really, really helpful for that reason. And it's just great, if I have a kid get sick, I can put my little group me messenger and be like, "Hey, who can take this shoot today?" And almost always somebody will pick it up. So, it's really great to have, like, the backup on a team.
Yeah. And that honestly, I feel like that almost pairs really well with what you do in your own business too, because it's not taking anything away from your personal business. It's
Right.
just adding to you and the skills that you already have
Yeah.
to help you bring in like extra money. And I think that that is probably the key if you're going to like try and do this is to figure out okay, what things am I not interested in doing in my own personal business, but I have the skills and knowledge to be able to complete it? And maybe that's something that you could become a contractor for.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really great to do those things that don't take a lot of brain power. It takes a lot of creativity and brain power to run your own business and do the portraits and to set up mini sessions and just all the creativity and brain power that goes into that. It can be really exhausting. So having contract positions, even if that's second shooting from time to time or contracting for a company where it doesn't take all that brain space and creativity away from your own business, I feel like I have so much more to pour into my own stuff when I'm not fully relying on my own shoots to get the bills paid. It's really nice to have, like, a second stream of income that doesn't take up so much of yourself and your
Mhm.
own mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then the only other thing I can think of as like an additional way to make money through doing this would be getting a regular like W-2 job, but as a photographer or a videographer or an editor or something in that capacity.
Mhm.
And I wanna say there's probably not as many of those out there, but they do exist. So for example, there is a bigger company here in Sapulpa that, I wanna say maybe like 6 months ago, they were looking for a photographer to be like their main like product and like event photographer for when they put on like massive events for the community and things, and then also to like market their products and, make all of those things that they use for not only their billboards, but their social media and any marketing materials that they use. And a lot of those, well, not all of them, because some of them could be part time, some of them could be full time. It really just kind of depends on the company and exactly what they're wanting you to do and what they're looking for. But they do exist. Um, they just might not be as prevalent depending on your area or what exactly you're looking for.
I did know a girl who I couldn't tell you the company, but she worked for a company that did, like, school portraits, and it was not
Oh,
like
yeah.
it was a completely different company. I actually looked into Life Touch. They do not pay very well, and you're working long days, 9, Monday to Friday, so I wasn't really interested in it. But she worked for this company and she kind of had seasons. So she would have seasons where she would be traveling like to all these different schools throughout the country and they would get to go do cool things like go to Disney World while they were down there and they got to
Wow.
do really cool things. And so she loved it. She actually like offered to kind of get me in and see if I could get hired, but I had just had my first baby and I wasn't interested in traveling by any means, so not like that anyway, so I didn't pursue it, but that could be really cool too, especially if you are in a season where you could travel or do something really cool like that. I think the opportunities are out there, you just have to look for them, and it may not happen immediately, you may have to look for a while.
So the Buckle, like the big store usually in like malls and things,
Huh.
their main headquarters is actually in Kearney, Nebraska.
That's also
Fun
so
fact. It is so random, and most people don't know that, but that is where their main headquarters are at. And so they typically like partner a lot with UNK, which is like the University of Nebraska there. And sometimes they'll hire people like directly out of school as like interns to kind of like morph them into being a videographer or a photographer for like their brand stuff. And they actually brought one of the people in to like talk to us one day during like a career day thing. And they were talking about all the opportunities and like things that they got to do, like working for the Buckle. And he was talking about all of the places that they had like gone throughout the United States for their like their like marketing shoots and things. Like, he was talking about how they spent, like, a month in, like, Utah or something to make,
Very
like, a
cool.
whole, like, brand campaign for, like, some new, like, jeans that they were releasing, and so
Uh-huh.
they did, like, shoot days where it was, like, nothing but photo and video and, like, just getting, like, random B-roll and, like, making the commercials you see on TV and things like that, so those jobs do exist. They
Uh,
really, really do, and if that is, like, the route that you wanna take with it, there is zero shame, like, you do not have to own your own business to, like, be successful in, like, the photo or video world because those types of positions are definitely out there. You just have to work really hard to get to that point.
yeah, that is very cool. I never would've
Mhm.
I mean, TV and film, I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities, not necessarily where we live, but more so, like, on the West Coast.
Yeah, I will say though that Tulsa is starting to become a little bit more of a hub for TV shows and movies because
Right.
I think like the Tulsa King kind of started that a little bit when Taylor Sheridan made that TV show. Not all of it was filmed in Tulsa, obviously, like, they kinda filmed different things at different places, but a lot of it was filmed in Tulsa specifically because they used the Mayo, and I think that that was kind of a big introduction to, like, "Hey, come to Tulsa to, like, film stuff,"
Right.
and now I can't remember what it's called, but they just got done filming a bunch of stuff at the Philbrook for, like, another really big TV show that is
Really?
coming out. Mhm.
Very cool.
So, I think more and more of those, like, TV shows and movies and things are going to start coming here because it's a lot cheaper than, like, doing it in California, and
Right.
there's a lot more open space, there's very unique, like, buildings and architecture here,
Uh,
and so I do think that some of those opportunities may start presenting themselves specifically in this area a lot more than, you would think they would. So definitely keep an eye out for that if that is, like, the route that you are looking to take.
yeah. And I think a lot of people, they get into photography and they think, "Oh, I have to shoot weddings, or I have to shoot families, or I have to shoot newborns," and there's
Mhm.
so many other avenues you can take with it, and I have learned of all these, like, kind of untouched areas, like, real estate is a big one, not a lot of people do real estate. Um, Drone photography, not just for real estate necessarily, but my dad actually has somebody who works for him. He used to be the photography teacher at Tulsa Tech. in Owasso. He works for my dad now, and then my husband's parents are actually friends with him, and so I kind of have known him through the grapevine for a while. But he actually did all of the photography for the gathering place whenever they were building it. And so,
Oh,
like, once
cool.
he would stop by at the gathering place and put his drone up and take some, like, shots just of the progress, and he did that for months and months while they did that. And I mean, I don't know how much they paid him, but it was a lot, from my understanding, just from what other people have told me. Um, Duties like that. One thing that I do for my or used to do for my husband's company was when they were doing, metal buildings, I would go out and take photos of the progress so that they could show people, like, this is what it looked like before and after and the progress, and so there's those opportunities. You just kinda have to look for them and decide if it's something you're interested in. If not, like those types of shoots are so untouched that if somebody's looking for it and you specifically offer it, they're just going to pick you because you're the option. Whereas when it comes to weddings and newborns and all those things, there are a million options. And so
Yeah,
it's if your passion is portraits, do it. But if it's not, it's okay. You can go to other options and you can explore other avenues of photography. It doesn't just have to be portraits.
definitely. I almost kind of feel like that's something that a lot of us get stuck in is that we feel like when we start photography, that's the only direction you can go. You have to shoot weddings, you have to shoot families. That is it.
Oh,
There
I
is
definitely
no
feel
other
like
option. Yeah. And I think that if there is something that you can think of to do, somebody needs it, like, photography-wise, because there's just so many different things you can do with it. There's so many things that you can do with video too, and, especially, like, in the social media realm, if that is,
yeah,
like, the
people want
direction you wanna
really
go.
fancy reels.
Yep. There's so many different things that you can do in that avenue, like social media management, like you could manage people's like pages and things. You could create like, their posts and their reels and their, creative like Canva. What am I trying to say here? Like their carousels, that was the word I was looking for, that they do. It really just depends on what you are really interested in doing, and then from that point, once you figure that out, you just have to figure out the route to get there.
Yep.
And that doesn't always mean that it's gonna be a straight line either.
Yeah. Picking a few things that kind of go together really well, kind of like what you were talking about. And this might have been before the episode because we talked for a while before we started recording, but no, it was. You were talking about the doula.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
that seems like if you say doula and photographer, like those 2 things don't really go together, but when you think about it, they pair really well together, like they're complementary, and
yeah,
so not the same, but they complement each other, and so if you can find a few things like that, you'll be golden. And that's kind of what I've done. I've taken my skills from real estate photography and I have been able to kind of put that towards my branding. And so if I have a client, like a branding client who has their own space, I can do an add on and say, hey, I can come in and do photos of your office, your parking area. I can do drone photos so people can see where you're located. That is a really easy sell to add on to my branding packages. And people love that because if they want both, they don't have to go find somebody else. They can just do
mhm,
it all with you. And
yep,
it's just easier. Even if it's not the cheapest way, it's the easiest way. And so they'll just automatically, you know, add that on. So sorry. What was I
and
saying?
it's kinda the same with me too, that which is part of the reason why I decided to start offering video as well, because, again, like, you would think that photo and video are very different, but, in my opinion, especially with, like, weddings and things, they pair so well together, and at that point, I had shot enough weddings where and I'm not saying this is all videographers or all photographers or anything like that, but I had shot enough weddings where it was very difficult to get the photographer and the videographer to be on the same wavelength and not, like, be competing with where we're gonna stand, what we're gonna be capturing at what time, things like that, and I really felt like it was kind of hindering the couple's experience as well because we were not meshing, we weren't flowing, like, we were not on the same wavelength, there was competing things going on, and it was just kinda causing chaos, and so for me, it felt very natural to just say, "Okay, I'm gonna take this a step further, we're gonna start offering videography services as an add-on, and then that way they can book one person and communicate with one person, and they get photo and video from it."
And then their photo and video match too. Like, you don't
Mhm,
have editing styles either,
mhm.
which that
Yeah,
might not matter to a client. As a photographer, it would drive me crazy if my photos and my video didn't match.
mhm. Like, you hired, like, a dark and moody, like, photographer
Yeah.
versus,
A
like,
light,
a
airy.
videographer that's, like, really bright and really, like, light and airy, and yeah,
Yeah. I think it just makes sense. That was
it
something
does.
that I definitely explored. I didn't feel like at this point in my life, like, you have your husband to help you. Um, that's great. My husband is my babysitter, so I did try to find, like, a videographer, to, like, kind of, like, market ourselves together and, like, kinda do one contract and then the other would, like, pay the other their portion. It just didn't work out very well. She ended up just wanting to do photography on her own, and so at that point, I kinda lost my videographer, and I just decided videography wasn't for me, and that's okay, you know?
Yeah.
If that's not you, it's okay. And a lot of people don't even do videography for their weddings, so I did. I regret it slightly, but
Yeah. And I think honestly, like, if you're going to decide to do it, it really kinda depends on, like, what you wanna shoot and, like, I would even say, like, what season of life you're in, like you were talking about. So, like, I don't have any kids yet. So, for me, it's really not a problem for me to, like, drag my husband along to a wedding on a Saturday because he typically doesn't work Saturdays. So, you know, and then it's a way for us to, like, hang out, like, he really enjoys doing it, he loves coming to weddings, like, he told me, like, the other day while we were at a wedding, he's like, "Man, I wish that we could get to the point where this is all we did because I love doing this." And so,
oh,
like, that's, like, the ultimate goal for us is to get to the point where I can get him out of doing his regular, like, 9 to 5,
yeah.
and we can do this, like, full time together and just do photo and video together.
You're
Because
gonna have to put him to work in the office if you do that.
oh, yeah, I already told him, I was like, "If you're gonna, like, get out of your job, we're gonna get you a computer, you're gonna learn how to
Yep.
edit, you're gonna do all these extra things, you're gonna take stuff off my
You're gonna
plate."
be the social media manager.
Yep. Yeah. But I will say though, for me, like adding video, I don't think it was as big of a deal for me specifically, just because part of my degree, I took video courses. And so I already had a good foundation knowledge of like video in general. And so there was some steps I was able to skip because the bare bones of understanding video were there. I didn't have to do all of the, like, crazy, like, "Okay, I have to learn from the ground up." Some of that I already knew.
See, that's part of me why I haven't jumped into it because I don't have any knowledge, like, my
Mhm,
video knowledge is with my phone. Like, I have a girl who I, like, shoot her podcast, her photos for her podcast, and she texted me one day, and she was like, "I have a camera emergency, is there any way I can borrow your camera to, like, video the podcast?" And I was like, "Don't ask me why, but I know mine will only go for 30 minutes." And that is my working knowledge of video with my camera. Like, I don't know why it only goes 30 minutes, but I know it'll time out after 30 minutes or it'll overheat or something. I know my
mhm,
camera is not for video. And so she's like, "Oh, I had no idea." And I was like, "Yeah, me neither." I have no knowledge of it at all. But it would be a huge undertaking for me to learn all of the things that go into video. I
yeah,
also heard it's pretty expensive too, like, you don't realize how much you have to buy to really get into it, and so that's what one of our mutual friends, Charlie, was telling me, she was like, "I have so much stuff," and she didn't realize how much she would have to invest and buy and keep up with.
I would say the video side is probably like if you thought you spent a lot of money getting into photography, be prepared to probably spend like triple what you spent getting into photography.
I can see
Like,
that because you have to
yeah.
have mics and different lens filters and
Mhm.
all sorts of
And
stuff.
you have to have extra lenses, you have to have different camera bodies. It honestly, it really depends on what you're trying to shoot because if you're trying to shoot like what you were saying, like anything longer than 30 minutes to an hour, you got to have like a camera or some type of a rig set up where it doesn't overheat. So, like, they make, like, cooling, like, fans that you can attach to them. A lot of times, either the camera will overheat after a certain point, depending on, like, where you're at, what's like, how warm it is, things like that, or the battery will not, like, last long enough to be able to record that
Oh,
high
yeah.
quality of a video. Um, so it really just kinda depends, but there's, like, cooling systems that you can buy to hook up. There are literal, like, cinema cameras that you can buy with built-in fans.
Uh-huh.
There are, like, external power banks that you can buy to attach to your rig to, like, rig it so that you charge the power bank and the power bank becomes your battery for the camera.
Okay.
There is so much that goes into it. I just got done we're currently building this thing out. This was super
Wow.
expensive. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, this is a power bank that can last for, like, several hours, and it took me far too long to figure out how to be able to, like, actually hook it up to get it to run as, like, this is the camera battery,
Uh-huh.
and, finally I ended up finding a video on YouTube that told me how to do it, and I needed a $20 piece, so I got on B&H and ordered another another random thing.
Yeah.
But
Well, if that's your goal, like, go ahead and start photography and use that income to start putting it towards video. I think that's okay. Do it
yeah,
slowly if you have to, but just be prepared that, like, if you wanna jump into something like that, like, it's gonna be an investment, time and money-wise, so and
definitely.
you know what, too? I think for a long time, I felt like I had to get into video, like, at some point, that was gonna be, like, my next step, and I just decided that it's not, and that's okay, like, that's just not gonna be my thing, and I don't think it ever will be, I just don't have, like, the interest in it, and the last thing you wanna do is get into something you don't care about.
But yeah, especially, like, something like video, because
Yeah,
you would invest so much time, so much money to
right.
only be like, "Yeah, I don't like this."
Yeah. Which
So,
photography is expensive to get into, but I mean, I feel like my business expenses are more like my client management system and
mhm.
all of those monthly recurring expenses. It's not my camera, once you have your stuff, you have your stuff, so you kinda look forward to that too. Well, this has been a fun rambling episode.
Yeah, I love it. I
I
feel
feel
like
like I needed
we
it.
jumped, but it kinda all made sense and came together,
It
I
all fit
think, so
together. I needed a
yeah.
chatty episode this week. Well, I guess we'll be back next week with, Lightroom hacks. According
Yeah,
to Reddit, we're doing Lightroom hacks.
I think that'll be fun.
Well, thank you guys for joining this week. Again, I'm your host, Michaela Steek, owner of Tilladon Photo Company,
And I'm Courtney Miller, owner of Miller Image and Motion.
and this has been the Called and Creative Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye.